You think the chill in the October air is just from the changing seasons. Think again. Every year, as the daylight shrinks and the shadows stretch out like grasping fingers, something shifts. The world doesn't just get colder, it gets quieter, more still. And in that stillness, things that prefer the dark feel a little more comfortable stepping out. What you're about to hear are not fictional tales crafted for a thrill. They are accounts from people who walked into an ordinary autumn day and found something waiting for them in the twilight, something that redefined their understanding of fear. This is an investigation into the moments when the line between playful spookiness and genuine terror is not just crossed, but erased completely. Let's begin with a scene that should be familiar to many, a simple game of hide and seek. A group of siblings, visiting their mother in an apartment located in a part of town that always felt a little too empty despite the crowding of buildings, decided to lean into the season. The plan was to play outside after dark, to use the deep, orange-tinted shadows cast by rusty lampposts to their advantage. The excitement was palpable, a classic childhood adventure. The narrator and his sister, Jess, found what they thought was the perfect spot, tucked away near the large garbage tins at the end of a long alleyway beside the building. It was there, in the silence that followed the seeker's call, that the normalcy of the game shattered. At the far end of the alley, standing perfectly motionless under a lone light, was a figure. It was abnormally tall, its form distorted, and atop its head was a colorful afro, the kind a clown would wear. This wasn't a playful, party clown. This was something else. Its face was a mask of black, with only the eyes visible, and it was staring right at them. The first instinct was to rationalize. It's just someone in a costume, a weird prank. But the sheer stillness of it was all wrong. The fear became collective when they regrouped with another brother and a friend, only to discover a second clown, this one with green hair, now closer and actively engaging with them, waving with a deliberate, unnerving slowness. The flight to the apartment was a blur of panic. But the violation wasn't over. The true mark of terror came later, in the one place every child is taught is safe, their own home. A noise at the second-story window. A knock. And in a moment of heart-stopping horror, the narrator looked out to see the same clown, its face now just inches from the glass, looking directly in. This is the fundamental anatomy of a real haunting. It's not about ghosts. It's about the intrusion of the inexplicable into your sanctuary. The clown at the window was a message: your safety is an illusion. We build walls and locks to feel secure. But what do they mean when the threat can simply appear, silent and staring, 2 stories up? The real question this story forces us to ask isn't about the identity of the clowns, but about our own vulnerability. How many of us would have the courage to look out that window? And how many of us, once we had, would ever feel truly safe in the dark again? The next account takes us from the communal fear of a city alley to the deeply personal terror of a solitary walk home. An 11-year-old child had a daily ritual, passing a particular house that was the subject of local gossip and fear. It was dilapidated, rotting, a stark eyesore that seemed to radiate neglect. For weeks a figure stood in the window, a silent, unmoving sentinel watching the child pass. The natural response from friends was dismissal. It's just a Halloween trick, someone trying to scare you. And we are socially conditioned to accept these rationalizations, to believe we are overreacting, being a scaredy cat. This is how predators often operate, testing boundaries under the guise of normalcy. The situation escalated predictably, yet no one was prepared for it. The watcher left the window and took to the porch. As the child walked by, the figure launched itself from the steps and gave chase. This was no longer observation, it was a hunt. The child's desperate scramble for safety, ending in the foul, smelling confines of a dumpster in an alley, listening to the heavy breathing and incoherent muttering of the pursuer just feet away, is a visceral, primal kind of fear. It's the fear of being prey. The subsequent police investigation revealed the most chilling fact of all: the house was vacant. It had been empty for years. Let's sit with that for a moment. The system's investigation hit a dead end. The official, comfortable explanation was a homeless squatter, and the case was effectively closed. But this explanation is a blanket we throw over a gaping hole in our understanding. It allows us to file the event away and move on. But what if the truth is more complex? What does it say about our society that a person can occupy a forgotten space and use it as a staging ground for stalking and terror, and the ultimate response is a bureaucratic shrug? This story is a stark warning about the maps we draw of our own neighborhoods. We know the routes to school, the locations of friends' houses, the busy stores. But we actively ignore the blank spots, the decaying structures that become voids. When we as a community ignore these voids, we are not just ignoring ugly buildings, we are ignoring the potential for anything, or anyone, to fester within them. The terror isn't just the man who gave chase, it's the environment that allowed his presence to go unchecked and unexplained for so long. Our investigation now takes us across the world to rural Poland, to a context where the Halloween season carries a different, more sinister cultural weight. Here, a young woman's evening walk with her dog, Susie, was a routine of peaceful solitude. The path was a familiar one, bordered by a forest on one side and an old, disused stable on the other. The tranquility was broken not by a sudden movement, but by the violent, frantic reaction of her dog. The animal, usually aggressive towards specific triggers, was now completely unhinged, barking and pulling towards the tree line near the stable. That's when the narrator saw the source of the terror. A figure in pristine white robes, kneeling with a straight back, perfectly still, just beyond the reach of the dim, aging streetlights. He wasn't hiding, but he wasn't in plain sight either. He was positioned in that liminal space watching. The silence and the posture were what made it so deeply unsettling. This wasn't a furtive movement, it was a ritualistic pose. She escaped, shaken but physically unharmed. The true horror revealed itself hours later when sirens pierced the night. The old stable was on fire. The official, comfortable narrative was quickly established. Drunk teenagers playing a prank. It's the easy answer, the one that lets a community sleep at night. But the narrator knew what she had seen. The person she witnessed was not a rowdy teenager. He was disturbingly calm, deliberate, almost meditative. The most terrifying question this story raises is not who he was, but what was he doing? What was the purpose of kneeling in silence for what must have been hours before the act of arson? We are a species that craves rational explanations. We label unsettling events as pranks or vandalism, to force them into a box we can understand and therefore dismiss. But this story challenges that impulse. It suggests that some actions are born from motives we cannot, or are unwilling to, comprehend. The horror of the white-robed figure is not in a jump scare, but in the profound and chilling mystery of his intent. It forces us to confront the possibility that the world contains rituals and logics entirely separate from our own, and that sometimes we stumble upon them in the dark. Finally, we return to a quintessential image of Western autumn, the family pumpkin patch. It's a place of ladder, hot cider, and the simple joy of finding the perfect pumpkin. For a group of friends, it was the backdrop for a dare, to retrieve the largest pumpkin from the very back of the lot, near a thickly wooded area. It was there, nestled between the pumpkins and the trees, that the narrator saw a figure. The initial assumption was a scarecrow, a seasonal decoration. But the details were wrong. It was too thin, its posture too rigid, and then the slight movement of its hat, like breathing. The first chill of fear is that moment of cognitive dissonance, when your brain tries to fit something into a familiar category and fails. As they left, the figure seemed closer. A glance back confirmed it was gone, offering a fleeting sense of relief that was brutally short-lived. The figure reappeared, closer still, and now it began to move. And its movement was the source of the true, deep-seated horror. It didn't walk. It glided. It seemed to float over the crunching leaves, its head tilting in a way that was studying, alien. This was not a person in a clumsy costume trying to scare people. The witnesses describe a biomechanical impossibility, a smooth, silent, fluid advance that defied the normal human gait. Their flight to the safety of the crowded main area was a race against this gliding terror, and the figure stopped, as these entities often do, at the very edge of the light, simply watching them leave. The subsequent discovery of an anonymous online report describing the exact same phenomenon at the same patch is the final, crucial piece of data. It confirms the experience and isolates the witness from the easy accusation of imagination. This case is perhaps the most disturbing, because it offers no comfortable rationalization. It cannot be neatly explained as a homeless person, a squatter, or a prankster. The evidence points to a phenomenon that simply does not fit our understanding of reality. The fear it instills is the fear of the unknown, the fear that the rules of the world we take for granted are not as fixed as we believe. So, what are we to make of these 4 files from the October archives? A clown at a second-story window, a stalker from a vacant house, a silent, robed figure before an act of arson, a gliding entity in a pumpkin patch. They occur in different countries to people of different ages, in vastly different settings. The common denominator is not a specific monster, but a pattern of violation. It is the moment the world reveals a crack, and through that crack, something looks back. These stories are a collective warning against the complacency of rationalism. Our modern minds are quick to dismiss, to explain away, to label. We do this to maintain our sense of order and control. But these accounts suggest that sometimes, the darkness is not a metaphor. It is a physical space where things wait. They remind us that fear is not a weakness. It is the most ancient and essential survival tool we possess. That chill down your spine, the gut feeling that something is wrong. These are not products of an overactive imagination. They are your primal instincts sounding an alarm. So, the next time you're walking home on a crisp October evening, and you feel the unmistakable sensation of being watched, or you hear an unexplained rustle in a pile of leaves, Don't just brush it off. Don't just tell yourself you're being silly. Look, listen, and most importantly, be ready to run. Because the true terror of October isn't the manufactured fear of horror movies, it's the quiet, unsettling truth that for 1 month of the year, the hidden things feel just a little bit closer and a little bit bolder. And they are watching.